Good morning, Orko. Welcome to the live class.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. My voice is audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let me allow the others and then I will be starting. Yes, very good morning, Shomodip. Welcome to the live class. I guess I am audible as well as visible to.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good morning. So my voice is audible and I am visible to all of you. Okay, so I will be dealing with the revision chapter related with the portrait of a lady that I will be revising. I am hereby sharing the screen. Make sure you all can see it properly. Well, the screen is getting presented as you can see. So first of all, I will be showing you a PDF file, and then side by side I will show you some PPT files also related with this chapter. So the first segment is related with the PDF file. Just hold on, I guess it will be visible shortly. Yes, so I guess you all can see it. Is it visible to all of you, the portrait of a lady? Yes, Orko and Shomodip, can you both see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So it is written by Kushwant Singh. So first of all, let us know a bit about him. He was born on 2nd February 1915 and he died on 20th March 2014. Very famous Indian author. I guess there is someone on the line. Okay, so let us move on. I think Shayandip joined us right now. Very good morning. Welcome to the class. Okay, so he was an Indian author. He was a lawyer.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. He was a diplomat. He was a journalist. And also he was a politician. Now, one of his book that was later made into a film, that book was Train to Pakistan, and Train to Pakistan actually is related with the partition. Okay, see, his experience in the 1947 partition of India inspired him to write Train to Pakistan, which became his most well-known novel, and Train to Pakistan became one of his most famous novels. And in order to know more about him, we can say that he was one of the most prominent Indian writers and columnists. In the story, the author draws a pen portrait of his grandmother. Now, basically, as I repeated earlier also, this particular chapter deals with the loving memory of his dear grandmother. Okay, I guess there is someone on the line. Let me allow. I think Shomollo joined us right now. A very good morning. Welcome to the class. Okay. Now, good morning. Good morning. So, as I was saying earlier a bit, that this chapter actually is related with Kushwant Singh's portrayal of his grandmother. He has beautifully written an account of his relationship with his grandmother and how close that relationship was, and an affectionate bond was shared between them. We can get all those information from this particular short story. Now, some important thing that we have to know. First of all, this entire story is related with Kushwant Singh's grandmother. Only few lines at the very beginning of the story is related with his grandfather, but overall, if you see and if you analyze the story, you will get to know that the bulk of this story is related with Kushwant Singh's grandmother. Now, there are some points that we have to remember when we talk about Kushwant Singh's grandmother. Okay, number one, if we concentrate on her physical appearance, then we can say she was old, she was short in height, she was a bit bulky, and she slightly used to bend a bit. Okay, her silver hair scattered untidily on her wrinkled face. Okay, this is another important point. And she hobbled around the house. That means she used to move around the house. And obviously she was a widow, so she used to wear white clothes. But remember, she never used to hold a stick. She used to balance by putting one hand on her waist and with the other obviously telling the beads of her rosary. Now telling the beads of her rosary, dear students, it means that she was very religious, very traditional, very conservative and very religious. Author remembers her as not very pretty but always beautiful, because obviously the author haven't seen her when she was a young girl, or later also the author haven't seen her as a gorgeous lady. Okay, the image that was imprinted in the mind of the author was that his grandmother was beautiful but not so pretty. And how can she be pretty? Because she was already quite old. But nevertheless, Kushwant Singh put stress. If you read the NCERT text, you will get to know that he had put a lot of stress on the fact that though her grandmother was not pretty, but she was always beautiful. Okay, and another important thing, he compares her calm and serene face to that of a winter landscape. This is something very, very important. That means there was something in her that will make you feel peaceful. Okay, she was like an embodiment of peace and serenity. Okay, so obviously her peaceful nature, her calm nature was compared with that of a winter landscape. So that is all about the grandmother. Because this is a revision class, so point wise I will be discussing. Next one, remember, it has been divided into many phases. At the initial stage of his life, when he was a young boy, at that time Kushwant Singh used to stay with his grandmother, and they used to stay in the village. I guess there is someone on the line. Let me allow. Yes, a very good morning, Vishwajit. Welcome to the class. Okay, so let us move on right now. So see, the first phase is the childhood phase. Remember, her parents used to stay in the city, and Kushwant Singh and Kushwant Singh's grandmother used to stay in the village. And the primary education or the elementary education Kushwant Singh received in the village only. Later, when they were called to the city, then Kushwant Singh got admitted to an English medium school. Okay, but primarily his elementary education was in the village. See, grandmother used to wake him up in the morning, plastered his wooden slate, prepared his breakfast, and accompanied him to school, because the temple priest was the teacher. So the grandmother used to read the scriptures, whereas Kushwant Singh used to study. Okay, and the elementary school was very much adjacent to the temple. Okay, wait, I guess there is again someone on the line. I guess Shorodip joined us. Good morning, welcome to the class.
Sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, good morning. Okay, so as I was saying that their friendship was something unbreakable during this time, because they used to be together most of the time. Even in the morning also, she used to wake him up. Then obviously she used to prepare him for school, and obviously she used to accompany him to school. While he studied alphabets, she read the scriptures in the temple attached to the school. And I already told you that the temple priest was the teacher. Okay, so on one hand, his grandmother used to study the alphabet, used to study the scriptures, whereas he used to study the alphabets. Now I am scrolling a bit down. On their way back home, she fed stale chapatis to stray dogs. And obviously, we find that Kushwant Singh's grandmother was very kind-hearted. We find that she used to feed the dogs in the villages. later in the second phase, okay, when they both moved to the city, she used to feed the sparrows. Okay, now that is the next heading been given. I guess up to this it is very clear. The village part is important. Remember the earlier phase of the academic career of Kushwant Singh, he studied in the village only. Okay, now at that time they used to share a very close bond. They means I am talking about Kushwant Singh's grandmother and Kushwant Singh himself. But later as they moved to the city, their friendship was snapped. Okay, and that was the biggest turning point in their relationship. See, in the city when the family moved, author went to a city school in a motor bus and studied English, law of gravity, Archimedes principle, and many more things which she could not understand at all. Remember, previously she could help Kushwant Singh with studies because the elementary things or elementary topics that were taught in the village school, she could help Kushwant Singh with all those things. Remember, she was literate, but she was not highly qualified. But when Kushwant Singh came to the city and went on studying in an English medium school, he learnt English, obviously science also, law of gravity, Archimedes principle. Now these things, it is very difficult for Kushwant Singh's grandmother to understand, and as a result she could not help Kushwant Singh with his studies at all. Okay, now another important thing has been mentioned here. I guess you all can follow it very well. Can you see the highlighted portion, the one I have highlighted right now? Can you all see it? Is it visible? What is written here? City school in a motor bus.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Now this is very important. Why it is so important? Because previously in the village they used to go by walking and the bond was very strong. But in the city, Kushwant Singh used to go to a school and a motor bus used to come to take him to school. Okay. Now in the city, grandmother used to stay in a prison. It seems that she can't go outside also. Previously she used to accompany Kushwant Singh to school, but now she could neither accompany him to school nor help him in his studies because English, then science, okay, law of gravity, Archimedes principle, she had no idea regarding all this, and so she can't help Kushwant Singh with his studies at all. And she was also upset, as you all know, because she was deeply religious and there was no teaching of God. Okay, practically there was no teaching of God and scriptures at city school. There was no religious education, and that was the reason she was terribly upset. Okay, another important thing was that when she got to know that Kushwant Singh was given musical lesson, or when Kushwant Singh was learning music at school, she was very, very upset because according to her, it is not meant for gentle folk. It is for the beggars and the prostitutes. Now that was her mentality. But remember one thing, she was never vocal. She was never vocal in the sense that she never protested verbally. She kept quiet, and sometimes we know that silence is consent, we can say in this regard, because she kept quiet. She never protested vocally, but obviously by being quiet, she made everyone realize that she was very upset with the turn of events, and obviously the distance created more when she got to learn that Kushwant Singh was given music lessons. Now there is another phase, that when Kushwant Singh went to a university, okay, for higher education. Now the bond of friendship that they shared when they used to be in the village, now that bond of friendship has got snapped. Okay, obviously with the passage of time, Kushwant Singh became educated. Okay, then there were a lot of commitments that he had to do. So obviously that bond that Kushwant Singh shared with his granny or with his grandmother, that was snapped with the passage of time. Okay, before I head into this particular point sector, before I head into this, up to this, is there any doubt? Anyone? Any doubt, or whatever I discussed? It is clear. Okay, fine, fine. So now you see, as I told you, higher education, obviously college, then university, and obviously Kushwant Singh went to abroad also to study law. Now obviously in the university he used to stay in a hostel. He was given a separate room, and obviously, as I referred a bit earlier, the common link of their friendship that they shared, okay, that was totally snapped. It was totally broken. Grandmother hardly talked to anyone now. This is something very important that she kept to herself, okay. And what she used to do, most of her time, she used to sit beside her spinning wheel, that charkha that she used to do. She used to recite prayers. That shows that she was a very religious minded lady or woman. And obviously the happiest half an hour of the time was when she used to feed the sparrows. Just like she used to feed the dogs by providing them rotis and chapatis. Now in the city she used to feed the sparrows. Now she used to feed them breadcrumbs, crumbs, or we can say pieces of bread. Okay, now I am scrolling. Now later, after university education was complete, Kushwant Singh got an opportunity to study abroad, and as I told you, he went to London to study law and to become a barrister. So grandmother and the others, they all came at the railway station. The grandmother was disturbed from inside, but remember one thing, she was very strong in her willpower. She was a very strong minded woman, and she never showed her weakness. Seeing her old age, the narrator thought it was his last meeting with her, because the narrator thought that maybe this is his last meeting with his grandmother, because at that time Kushwant Singh's grandmother was very old. But contrary to his thinking, when he returned after a span of 5 years, grandmother was there to receive him. But Kushwant Singh got very surprised when later, after 5 years, when he returned back, he found his grandmother waiting, and exactly not a single day old. That means 5 years ago, before he departed from London, at that time, as he saw his grandmother, she looked exactly like the same when Kushwant Singh returned all the way from London. And to be very honest with all of you, even Kushwant Singh was surprised, because Kushwant Singh never thought of this. And another important thing is that according to Kushwant Singh, it seems that his grandmother was not a single day old. She looked exactly the same as she was 5 years ago. Okay. Then in the evening time, she celebrated the occasion of homecoming of her grandson. How she celebrated? Obviously she went on singing, and obviously she went on gathering the ladies of the neighborhood, and she went on singing a Punjabi folklore related with the homecoming of the warriors. Okay, with the help of a dilapidated drum, she went on singing. Okay, now the final phase, that is the last hours of her life. Now this is very important. Next morning only, actually she got very tired that evening only, and despite the others went on requesting her, she went on beating the drum without caring whatever the others were thinking about her. Now the next morning only, she had a mild fever. Remember, it was not serious. Okay, the doctor came, the doctor did his diagnosis, gave the report that it was a mild fever, it won't last long. But Kushwant Singh's grandmother had some other things in her mind. She presumed that her end was near, and that was the reason even she stopped praying also. Okay, that was something unthinkable, but she kept on telling the beads. Okay, she went on moving her lips a bit, and finally the rosary that used to be always with her, it fell from her lifeless fingers. The moment it fell from her lifeless fingers, dear students, at that time only everyone realized that she was no more. Okay, and obviously if you read the NCERT text, you know by this time that thousands and thousands of sparrows, they gathered around the courtyard to pay their last tribute to their friend, that is Kushwant Singh's grandmother. Okay, and obviously to mourn the death, thousands of sparrows flew in and sat scattered around her body. There was no chirping, and when author's mother threw breadcrumbs, as you know, pieces of bread, okay, the sparrows, they haven't eaten a single piece of bread that was thrown at them. They practically took no notice of the bread as such. What they do after the dead body or after the corpse was taken for cremation, they flew away quietly. Okay, when the dead body of grandmother was carried away for the cremation purpose or was carried away for last rites, at that time they flew away quietly. They haven't touched a single piece of bread. Remember, Kushwant Singh mother gave them some pieces of bread, but they haven't touched a single piece of breadcrumbs. What they do? Thousands of sparrows, as you know, they gather around the courtyard. With the exit of Kushwant Singh's grandmother, as her body was being taken for cremation purpose, they all flew away. Okay. Now before I move on to the theme, this is the plot summary that I had discussed with the help of some value points with separate headings. Okay, for your convenience, I will be sharing it also, so no need to worry. Already in the classroom it has been shared. So dear students, up to this, is there any doubt, any sort of confusion you have at the back of your mind? Any questions you want to ask up to this, dear students?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. So let us move on. Okay, now the theme. Now see, there are many themes that we find here. Obviously the theme of innocence we find, the theme of friendship is also there, the theme of love is there, the theme of kindness is there, obviously because we find that the grandmother was very affectionate and kind hearted towards animals, okay, and obviously towards birds. Okay, we find respect and we find acceptance, and we find love for grandparents also. That is also, that will come under this category, love for elders, or we can say love for the grandparents. So remember, as I highlighted here, these are the themes, important, very important, whether you solve MCQ or subjective. If the concept is not clear, there will be big problems. So theme of innocence we find, friendship is there, love, connection, kindness, selflessness, respect and acceptance. All these things are noticeable. Okay, now regarding the word meanings, there are a lot of word meanings, and all the word meanings I won't be discussing, but definitely some of the important word meanings I will be discussing. One is this one, mantelpiece. Remember, this was been written related with the portrait that was kept near the fireplace, okay, on a mantelpiece. Whose portrait? Obviously not the portrait of Kushwant Singh's grandmother, but the portrait of Kushwant Singh's grandfather. Now what is a mantelpiece? Mantelpiece is basically a structure of wood, marble or stone above and around a fireplace. Okay, that is the meaning of the term mantelpiece. Now another important thing is fables. Fables are actually a fictitious story with a moral lesson, okay, or a moral teaching, that is known as fables. Rosary is another important meaning that I like to discuss with you all. It is actually a string of beads. I guess you have seen the Tibetans. I guess you have seen pictures of Dalai Lama also carrying a beads of rosary in his hand. I guess you have seen it. The Tibetans, they use it, but anyone can use it, but basically with the Tibetan saints we can find it. Okay, now it is used for count of number of chants made of a religious prayer, that is known as rosary. Serenity, it is actually a state of being peaceful and calm. That is the meaning of the term serenity. Now, distressed means suffer from extreme sorrow or pain. That is the meaning of the term distressed. Now, grandmother was distressed when she realized that her grandson is getting far away from her, getting Western educated, learning about music and all the Western knowledge and everything. She was deeply hurt. But remember, she was very strong and she never exposed her emotion or feelings to anyone. And remember, another possible theme that comes out in while reading this context is obviously the theme related with gap filling. That is something very important. Lewd association means something that is indecent or obscene. That is the meaning of the term lewd. Now, this one is important, a veritable bedlam of chirpings. What does it refers to? It refers to the noise and confusion caused by the chirping of the sparrows. That is known as a veritable bedlam of chirpings. Okay. Now, rebuke, I guess frivolous and rebuke, these two are very important meanings and I want to discuss both of them. First, frivolous, not having any serious purpose, light-hearted. When we love someone, we actually comment something in a very light-hearted manner with a slight rebuke also. Okay, now when Kushwan Singh's grandmother used to feed the sparrows, now related to that there used to be some frivolous rebukes from her side. Rebuke means when you scold someone, when you are dissatisfied with someone, okay, then at the time that you scold, it is actually related with light-hearted scolding. When we love someone, okay, we don't scold that person seriously, right? We scold in a very light-hearted manner. Okay, that is known as frivolous rebukes. There is another important meaning, this one, the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum. Why I am giving you the meanings, why I am describing the meanings, because it will be very helpful for you in terms of MCQ also. Okay, the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum, it means the loose surface of the worn out drum. Remember, the drum was not a new one. It was semi-destroyed, it was very old, and the grandmother, despite getting so tired, she went on tirelessly beating that dilapidated drum and went on singing about a Punjabi folklore that is related with the homecoming of the warriors. And she gathered the women of the neighborhood also. Now, this was done by her on account of her grandson coming all the way from abroad after completing his higher education. That we all know. Customary means traditional. Pallor, this is very important. Pallor means an unhealthy, pale appearance. Okay, that is the meaning of the term pallor. Shroud, I guess you know. It is a sort of a cloth or a blanket, we can say, used to cover a dead person. That is the known by the term shroud. Okay. Now, I am moving on to the next important phase. This thing I should discuss with you. I am increasing the font size. This is a flowchart. Okay, this will be very important for you because there are three phases that you should all know about, dear students. But before that, kindly confirm to me whether this particular flowchart is visible to all of you. Can you all see it? Phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. It is visible. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is written at the top? This is very important. If you remember only this also, okay, if you study only this also, I am very hopeful that you will be able to understand the story. Okay, and obviously you will understand the different phases related with the story. What is phase 1? What is phase 2? What is phase 3? Now, what is the meaning of phase? Okay, phase means stage. Stage 1, stage 2 and obviously stage 3. So let us move on with this. So what is written? The Portrait of a Lady by Kushwan Singh. Now, regarding grandmother, what are the points we have learned, dear students? Fat and slightly bent. We learned that she had wrinkled face. she couldn't walk straight, okay, and that was the reason she used to place one of her hands on her, you can say, near her hip region, or near the, because she can't walk properly also, but she never used to carry a stick, as we know. With one hand she used to balance her body posture, and with the other hand she had a beads of rosary. Okay, so this is always prayed. That is also another characteristic trait of Kushwant Singh's grandmother. Okay, now 3 phases of friendship between grandmother and the narrator. Remember, there are actually 3 phases, or rather to say, dear students, there are actually 3 stages of friendship what we can find. First of all, let us concentrate on phase number 1. And when we talk about phase number 1, we have to talk about the village, the life in the village that Kushwant Singh and Kushwant Singh's grandmother spent in the village. Remember, they were very close during the village. See, close friends in village. Waked him up in the morning, made him ready for school. School was attached to the temple, prayed in chorus, spent her time in reading books. Okay, these are some of the very important things that happened in the village. She used to spend her time in reading religious books. They prayed in chorus. Okay, school was attached to the temple. She used to get him ready for school. She used to wake him up in the morning. We know it very well. Now, phase number 2. From the village, it is to the city. See, it is written, narrator started going to English school, that is English medium school. Both shared same room, but that that particular cordial relationship that they shared, that went missing. Okay, to be very honest with you, the cordial relationship that they shared when they used to be in the village, that went missing. Okay, grandmother hated English words and signs. Okay, she was totally against Western education. There was no teaching of God in English medium school, and that was the reason she was totally dissatisfied, discontent with the mode of education. Music, according to her, was not for the gentle folk. It is for the prostitutes and the beggars. Paupers means the beggars. Now this is the second phase. The third phase, when their friendship, already the distance created between them. In the second phase, obviously Kushwant Singh now used to go to an English medium school, learnt a lot. Obviously he can't interact in terms of the subjects that he used to learn at school, because his grandmother had no idea about all those. And in phase number 3, the friendship was totally broken. The friendship that Kushwant Singh shared with his grandmother, it was totally broken. See, and when Kushwant Singh went abroad, see, bond of friendship broken. This flowchart will help you to understand the entire story, dear students. Narrator began to study in a university, and of course narrator was given a separate room. We all know about it. Okay, now obviously later he went abroad also. At that time, for 5 years, Kushwant Singh and Kushwant Singh's grandmother hardly had any sort of contact. Again, when he returned 5 years later, at that time again they met, but that meeting was for the last time. Okay, dear students, now you see, in phase number 3, there are something that we have to know. I guess you all can see this slide. It is visible. This is this flowchart. This part is visible to all of you. Yes, Shomodeep and others, Orgo
Yes,
and
sir.
others. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. This is important. See, arrow sign has been given step by step. You have to follow it properly. And see, grandmother accepted her loneliness quietly. That means she accepted her sorrow quietly. Her silence, she suffered in silence. This is a very important point for all of you to note, that actually she suffered in silence. She never ever had spoken to anyone. Okay, obviously she had deep pain inside, but she never exposed that one. She was very much dissatisfied with Kushwant Singh. Okay, obviously Kushwant Singh went on learning about Western science, English literature, all this. The grandmother was not happy. But remember one thing, the grandmother haven't protested vocally, or in other words, dear students, the grandmother haven't protested verbally also. She never turned aggressive against anyone. She was not arrogant. She accepted her silence with resignation. Okay, and obviously, as I told a bit earlier, she suffered in silence. So what she used to do, how she used to spend her time, and how she used to deal with her loneliness as much as possible. Obviously, she used to do some four important things. She used to sit in the veranda, and unlike the dogs that she used to feed in the village, she used to fed the sparrows. Okay, she used to relax during the afternoon time, and obviously for the most part of the day, what she did spinning, and obviously she went on reciting her prayers. Okay, that is something very important. She sat in the veranda, she used to feed the sparrows, then obviously she used to relax only in the afternoon. She did spinning and recited prayers. Okay, now in this way she used to spend her time. She kept to her own self. She created her own zone. She accepted her loneliness. Okay, but she never complained. And she was so strong willed, dear students, you know by this time. She never ever made anyone realize the pain that she had deep inside herself. Okay, she never ever made it realize to others. That shows the strength and rigidity of her character. These points are very important. As I told you, when I will be having a live class, kindly keep a copy and a pen by your side, because this type of points will help you whether you are doing MCQ type question answers, whether you are doing subjective or essay type question answers. Okay, now narrator, as you know, goes abroad for higher studies, and with the help of this flowchart, okay, with the help of this flowchart, I try to explain you the entire story. See, if you read this flowchart also, here the entire story has been dealt with point wise. Now obviously university phase was over, but education was still incomplete. So what Kushwant Singh did, Kushwant Singh went to London for higher studies. Obviously, in order to become a barrister or a lawyer, he went to London to pursue education in law. We can say he wanted to be a barrister. So remember that particular sea of scene near that railway station. Okay, the grandmother kissed his forehead silently. Grandmother didn't show any emotions as such. And obviously her end. Remember, the narrator returned after 5 years, and what was the surprising element? She thought before she left the train left the station, that maybe this is the last physical contact in the form of a moist imprint on his forehead, okay, that the grandmother did. Maybe this is the last time that he is seeing her. But he is wrong, because obviously after 5 years, when Kushwant Singh returned back, he found his grandmother exactly the same, not a single day older, okay, waiting for him at the railway station to receive him. She did not pray. Okay, and after that, what happened at the very end, in the final climax part, what happened? We find that she didn't pray. That was something like a ball from the blue. Because never ever it happened, whatever might be the situation, whatever tough might be the situation, whatever difficult might be the situation, she never stopped praying. But the important thing is that particular time, okay, that particular evening, Kushwant Singh got to know, and the other family members also got to know, that she didn't pray at all. She gathered all the women in the neighborhood, and obviously she collected a dilapidated drum, okay, and she went on beating the drum tirelessly, but she got very tired, exhausted after few moments. But despite the request of the other family members, she went on beating the drum. And obviously she went on singing about the homecoming of the warriors. Finally, what happened? The next morning, she was ill. She had she had a fever. Okay, not a serious one, a minor fever. But and as the diagnosis of the doctor was concerned, but she realized that at the back of her mind that her end was near, and decided not to initiate further conversation with any of the family members, because according to her, she was going through the final chapter of her life. Okay, and finally her end, we find that the sparrows, they came in large number, thousands and thousands. As far as the NCERT text is concerned, it is written, they did not chirp, they did not make any noise, because they realized that their best friend was no more. They sat near the dead body, and finally when the corpse was taken in order to perform the last rites, when the corpse was taken of the grandmother in order to perform the final phase of the funeral ceremony, at that time the sparrows, they all flew away. They haven't touched even the breadcrumbs that was thrown at them by Kushwant Singh's mother. Okay, so this is the flow chart. Okay, dear students, this is the flow chart, that is the lesson at a glance. If you read this one also, then also it will be very clear. The entire concept of the story will be very clear. You don't have to prepare it. It has already been prepared. If you see it once, I guess there won't be any problem as such. Okay. So dear students, any doubt up to this? Whatever I discussed, it is clear to all of you? Is there any problem? Okay, it is clear to everyone?
It is clear.
Okay, fine. So thank you everyone. Thank you for a patient hearing. Take care everyone. Have a nice day. And see you all tomorrow. And by the way, before I end the class, Google form everyone should do. I saw that few of you had submitted the response related with the previous revised lesson, We Are Not Afraid to Die. If we can all be together, please submit that one. And this one also I will be sharing the link. I want everyone, Shomodev, Orgho, I want all of you to solve those 15 MCQs that I had given in my previous class related with We Are Not Afraid to Die. And regarding this lesson also, I have given 15 MCQs, and it's a request, it's a kind request from my side to all of you attending the class. Please solve the previous one and the pending Google form homework assignment and today's one also. I want to see everyone to respond. I will be sharing the link later in the course of the day. Okay, thank you everyone. Have a nice day. Thank you.